it's kind of a nice little buffer of I didn't, blow all of my tokens on them when they were just coming out of high school. I actually got to see what they'd look like in the college game a little bit, and now I can go pursue them.
I just trust what this program and these coaching staff is doing to be able to adapt to what college football is. As the old guy on the show, I remember
45, 40, 35, 40, he's gonna go! It's time people feel us!
Big Red Junkies.
Day by day, he gets better and better! We get better and better! Team is KPP! If we die, we die!
Man, woman, and child in that, put them in the aisle!
Bring that trophy back to Lincoln!
Welcome into another episode of the Big Red Junkies. I am BJ. This is Jed. This is Matt. We appreciate you guys for being here. If you haven't already, please like, share, subscribe, follow. We appreciate you guys, and we like doing this stuff. Today we are talking 2026 recruiting class, and what the fuck are we doing with it?
Not much.
not
We're
much.
doing not much.
Well, us three are not, because we don't do
I don't think
recruiting.
we're doing anything
No.
with it, actually.
We, as the Husker Nation, are not doing much either.
I know that there's so much of this sign of the times that's going on right now, and it is what it is, and you just got to roll with it, and the roster limits and blah, blah, blah. It just seems like such a wild departure from the first 2 years of recruiting here with Matt Rhule. My biggest question that I want to start with here is this. Are we not recruiting a big class? So, like, just for instance, Matt Rhule's first class here in 2020, heading into 2024, the class of 24, was 29 people. Last year, 25 was 21 people. Right now, we have 8 committed. And they're planning on this class landing somewhere between the 13 to 16 range, from what I understand from everybody that I've heard, industry experts-wise.
Yep.
Is this because the cupboards are finally full with the guys that Matt Rhule wants? Or is this truly just because roster limits are saying no more and he doesn't want to have to send people out?
I think it's a little bit of both, because we don't have to send in a whole lot of people. Well, we do at some point, but so we can't necessarily bring a shit ton of people. Yeah, but it's after this season.
Yeah.
I mean, so they do have to have people out. So it's a little bit of both, where you can't fill up every single hole that's leaving, but you also got to bring some people in. So it's I don't think it's anything bad, because it's just, we also have a shit ton of young players. We've talked about it how many times about the 800 defensive backs that we have in that room right now. And
I thought it was 804.
sure, I think 4 left, but also the fact that one of the reasons why I think Nebraska's class is going to be so small also is because we haven't seen the mass exodus like all these other schools have over the last, 2.5 seasons since Rhule has been here. I mean, in my opinion, because of the way that recruiting has changed, you kind of started off about how the drastic change of recruiting. I was going to go even farther back than just since Rhule's been here, because it's pretty wild how for the longest time at Nebraska, well, starting basically in Callahan, where recruiting was the biggest story everywhere. Everybody wanted to talk recruiting all the time. I fucking hated it, because I don't want to talk to 17-year-old kids. But, and I also don't want to hear the interviews of 17-year-old kids saying, every, 2.5 words.
What?
Exactly. So you then go through a handful of years with Callahan, and then still through Bo was, everybody wanted to talk about recruiting, which it was understandable at the time, even though it just bugged the shit out of me. But that's what got clicks. That's what
That's how you won the offseason national championship.
Well, I'm just talking about like the media. What if they wanted somebody to click on their website? You do a story on recruiting.
Yeah.
And everybody flocked to it. And now it's like with the transfer portal and everything else, it's like people aren't really talking about recruiting as far as the high school recruiting the way that they used to.
I think the transfer portal is a big part of this.
Yeah.
We saw Matt Rhule completely do a 180 on his views of transfers and his views on the kind of pursuit he puts against them in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
He is very much now about, let's give these guys a year or two wherever they are and then go get them. and then bring them into this program. So I think that's got to be part of it.
Well,
It doesn't really matter if they come here to start or not. We're going to get them early on, and we're going to get to develop them a year or two down the road.
I think one of the biggest things that he has transitioned himself specifically that maybe a whole lot of other people across the country have not yet is one of the biggest things in recruiting that you have to do nowadays with the transfer portal and NIL is recruit your own team every year.
Yeah.
And clearly Rhule has done that very well because we don't see 1,000 people leaving. We don't see the mass exodus of people leaving like we see all across the country. People actually want to stay because he is making sure these guys come here for the right reasons and want to actually stay here. He's doing exactly what he said to these kids, to those kids' parents, when they're sitting in the living rooms and everything else. And he's a stand-up guy and he's doing the right things even after the player comes here.
For those of you unable to watch on the video, if you're just following along for the audio, all I was doing that whole time was just shaking my head yes, nodding my head yes with everything that was being said. And going back to what Matt was saying about having to re-recruit your team and do those things, I think that's what Jed said. My bad.
Whatever.
What Matt was the point that I'm trying to get back to.
We're both handsome. It's fine.
What Matt was saying about kind of recruiting the long game and not necessarily like a lot of what you said is right that you're letting guys go someplace else and trying to grab them after the fact. But I think some of that's the recruiting long game right now. You saw us do it basically with Williams Nwaneri. Where he went to Missouri. We barely lost out, and he didn't really care for it there, and it was super easy for us to snag him up. Like, he was in the portal for all of 5 seconds.
Helped bring in his high school coach here, but yeah.
It helped doing it. But those are the
doing
types
the right
of
things, yes.
Yeah, those are the types of things that, I mean, it's not like we went and hired his high school coach because we wanted to get him.
Correct.
It was probably already in the works on the backside, just it didn't happen the year before, and now it did. But at the same time, you're long recruiting. That's one of the things that I really love about what we did with that 7-on-7 tournament thing that they hosted with Adidas, bringing in all those top talent. They said, hands down, by far, all the top recruiting guys that were here, there were like every major recruiting guy, national recruiting guy, was in Lincoln for that tournament. And that's because basically the top 50 to 70 players in the country, 80% of them were in Lincoln. You don't get that kind of exposure with that top tier talent.
Yeah.
Getting them all to come to Lincoln just from recruiting visits, just from word of mouth, things like that. Now, all those guys, are they going to sign at Nebraska because they came here and played in a 7-on-7 camp? No. But you know what they are going to do? They're going to get halfway through a season at Georgia, halfway through a season at Texas, halfway through a season at Ohio State. And they're going to be thinking about those facilities they saw in Lincoln going, damn, that'd be real nice right now.
Yeah. Well, and also,
if I'm not playing this year in general, that'd be real nice to be doing that.
Also, because of, the negative recruiting and stuff like that, how many of those kids come to Lincoln and they fly into Omaha and they go, wait, these are like actual cities?
This is a town. Like, this is an actual thing. There's a building more than four feet
You know what Omaha was.
Most of them didn't. I mean, hell, we also saw that before the College World Series started. I think it was Herdat who was doing some player interviews, and
that was hilarious.
And they said how much is in the population of Omaha?
Yeah.
Like
20,000.
Only like 3 of them
30,000?
guessed over 100,000.
Yeah, The one dude got like 500,000.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, you actually know the true population of just Omaha.
Yeah. So that's also kind of one of the bigger things that this staff is able to do, where we had staffs in the past that just bitched and moaned about how tough it is to get players here, Bo Pelini. And that's all they did, and they just
Scott Frost did that too.
Cried about it like crazy. Yeah, but Bo was the first one to really bitch and moan about it. But what didn't he bitch and moan about?
Cats.
But he's like, Rhule and his staff are like, no, we put a picture out with a bull behind Rhule and all this other stuff, and people are sitting on the bull. That's fine. And of course, people bitch and moan like, oh, we're not that big of hillbillies and there's no bulls. Okay, fine. You know what? Then it wasn't for you. Just fucking relax. Let them do their thing. They clearly know what the hell they're doing because they're attracting people here like crazy.
Hell yeah.
But also another one of the things that I think a lot of coaches are really tuning in on, again, going back to the transfer portal stuff, and Matt, with what you said. When you bring a player in and you're super close to getting them, and then they say, "No, I'm going to go somewhere else,"
You're one of their first thoughts when they're thinking about leaving.
Fuck off and kick rocks. You say, hey, best of luck to you. If there's anything that we can help you with in the future, please let us know. And you stay in contact, at least in contact as much as you can with that sort of situation. That's what you have to do in this day and age of the transfer portal because of exactly what you said. And I think this staff is so far on top of that, it's not even funny.
Yeah, just like other areas of the game, how much they've changed over the last few years, recruiting has done the same thing. And so I look at this and I see we're dead last in recruiting for that year in the Big Ten.
Cool. I don't care.
I don't know if it's going to be that big of a deal because by the time these kids are going to start actually getting good playing time on the field, that class is going to look completely different.
Well, because also
we're actually going to know which ones of them are the ones we want to go after. It's kind of a nice little buffer of I didn't, blow all of my tokens on them when they were just coming out of high school. I actually got to see what they'd look like in the college game a little bit, and now I can go pursue them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think it's great.
The high school recruiting rankings. I know that you got the ratio that Bud Elliott puts out every year with the 4 and 5-star players. If you have a certain number of those guys, then you're in contention to win the national title. If you don't, you're not in contention. I get all that. I'm not trying to say that none of that stuff actually matters because it does matter to get players in there. But I just trust what this program and these coaching staff is doing to be able to adapt to what college football is. As the old guy on the show, I remember so long just shouting into the wind of getting so mad that Nebraska can't adapt to what college football is doing, adapt how college football is changing. We always used to say we were on the cutting edge of everything, whether it's strength and conditioning and all this other stuff, nutrition and everything else. All of a sudden everybody caught up and we just kind of sat on our hands. And then when things started to change, we were just like, nope, we have to do it the Nebraska way. We can't do it any other way. And then we have a prodigal son returning and saying we have to do everything like we did in the 80s and the 90s. And look how that turned out.
Yeah.
We have a coaching staff that has a diverse, giant group of people around him. And he's not afraid to ask any of them questions or even people outside of Lincoln. And the way that he and that staff are so in front of everything that's happening with college football. There are a couple people that think that maybe Rhule shouldn't do all of the interviews that he does. It's like, no, he's one of the guys that says the things that everybody reacts to.
And he's one of the best, you talk about being a brand ambassador, not just for the state of Nebraska or for the University of Nebraska, for the state of Nebraska, for the city of Lincoln, for the city of Omaha, for the program in general to a fan base that they're trying to rejuvenate from a youth perspective. Because I don't know how many times over the last 10 years I've been walking around town. I go, you walk through the mall, you go to a high school football game, and you see all these kids that normally would be wearing a Nebraska jersey, wearing Oregon Duck shit, wearing Ohio State stuff, wearing Texas stuff. I've never seen the goal on as many people driving around fucking Omaha with Texas Longhorn nuts hanging off their trucks with big horns on the back. What the fuck? All of a sudden we got all these Texas fans in Omaha?
That's what happens when you win.
Well, that's what happens when you win and the local teams lose.
Yes. Yep.
Also, fuck those fans.
Especially with the teams that you mentioned. Yeah, fuck all of those guys.
And this may be the most unbelievable night in Cornhusker football history.